Yeah. I'm so excited to be here. Welcome to episode 9 of Faith for the Journey. And man, I had a rough time trying to set this camera up. I'm not even sure if it's going to record, even though I promised you that I would definitely try to see what I could do. But man, it was tough. And I am technologically very, very challenged. But you know what? Maybe next time it will be perfected. I tried, guys. But anyway, we're going to get started with episode number 9. I even got on late because I was just trying to see if I can pull it together here, but it didn't happen. But anyway, we're going to get started. And we always start out with music, and I'm excited to do that. You probably hear a little frustration in my voice because I don't like when things don't go my way, if you know me well enough. I'm so type A over the years. I've had to really work on that. Who's still working on themselves? I am. Yeah. Gotta keep doing the work. Yeah. So let's get started with some music like I promised. And I'm always like listening for new music for the podcast. And did you see my video I posted today? I was in the kitchen prepping my meals and talking about what we're going to talk about tonight. I thought it was cute. Anyhow, let's just get started. I mean, honestly, there's so much I can play. But I like this one. I think we're going to start out with The Same God. I stumbled up on this one this week. It's by Cross Worship. It's new. I don't know this one. So here we go. Here we go again. Every time I start the podcast, for some reason my phone is connected to something else. I'm not sure what it's connected to, but I'm going to disconnect from this, whatever it's connected to, and let's try that again. I'm a little bit challenged today. I tell you, not because you're doing good things, mean you won't have opposition. Here we go. So there you are. You have new music from Cross Worship with Jillian Ellis and Marcus Howard. We thank them for their words of encouragement and, I don't know, the courage to express their voice, their voices. So, it's interesting. During the week, I don't know, do you spend any time reflecting on, what you're doing, what you've done, or perhaps, what's meaningful or what has been important? Reflection is such an important skill because it is a skill and it's a habit. It's a habit that becomes, or it's a skill that becomes a habit over time, or vice versa. But reflection is so important. And so I was reflecting this week, which I try to do every day. I teach it all the time and I practice. I often say I don't, practice or I don't teach you what I don't do for myself. And, this week I've been reflecting on many things. And a lot of it really points to, I don't know, once again, meaning in life, purpose in life, finishing, my story. And it's so funny how my story has something to do with your story has something to do with someone else's. And so that's the paradox of life because we're intricately connected. And a lot of times we don't even recognize that that's what's going on, But yeah, it's important to recognize that reflection is an important skill or habit to continue to cultivate because in so doing, it brings awareness to different parts of our lives, things that we need to continue doing, things that we need to prune out of our lives, So in my reflection this week, and really bringing awareness to this part of what I do, which is this podcast, and, it goes to show you how connected we are, in the work that I do. I get feedback all the time, about, clients and their lives that are changing individually and how they're impacting others and how they impact my life, and one of the things that came up for me this week in terms of reflection or, how someone else co-authors my story is recognizing each person really has a purpose and a meaning. Two persons said to me this week, I just want you to know that, your podcast is just like an extension of our sessions or the group stuff that you do. It's a way of keeping us connected or it helps me through the week, or it helps me when I'm in the middle of something and it's a reminder. And I said, look at that. I tell you. So here's a reflection piece. Like two things came to mind. I'm like, wow, look at how these persons are helping to, write my story, and look at how I'm helping to write their story. You see how that works? Right. So that's the first thing that I thought. And then that's the reciprocity that I often reference, and I'll never stop referencing that. And then the next thing that came to mind is, I remember when I was growing up as a little girl, I didn't even like to hear my voice. I did not. Did I ever? I think I told you that before. I did not like my voice. I thought my voice was terrible. But this is what happens when you grow up with such a poor self-esteem. You don't think anything about you is good. I didn't like to hear my voice. At times when I was growing up, I didn't even like to see myself in the mirror. I didn't have certain, characteristics that I thought were unique, or what other persons considered to be unique. You see what I mean? So I thought to myself, look at that. Look at how we really do affect each other unconsciously, unconsciously. Then a third thing came to my reflection this week was, man, it's interesting how often that some of us, or a lot of us, we suffer silently. We suffer silently with these things that I'm talking about, or that I'm referencing or mentioning that I struggled with, growing up as a little girl. What are some things that you struggle with growing up as a little girl or as a little boy, right? And so, faith for the journey then really helps us to cultivate this part of our life, this spiritual part of our makeup, our constitution, of the self, that can help us to address those hard things that we often have come up with. Those things that from our last episode, we talked about, maybe adaptation. If you're evolutionist or creationist, we know that we live in a fallen world, and we know that things happen, and it's not because it was by choice that these things happen, but it was subjected in hope. And this hope is that what we're going to continue to look at. So, welcome to episode number 9. I hope I'm saying it right, because sometimes I lose track of the episodes at this point. But I think it's episode number 9, Paradox of Healing. And we're going to pick up from every episode, builds on the other. And again, this was feedback from the NBHI community, that works because they can pick up from anywhere in the episode, and they're able to continue and make sense of what we've been talking about. All right, so let's pause right here. So remember, this podcast, right, can be tough. Hey, you might even disagree with some of the things that I talk about. I don't mind that. It's okay. You can disconnect. Let me know, right? If this podcast becomes too heavy for you to listen to, please, by all means, step off, shut it down, do some breath work, do some movement, listen to some good music. This podcast really is geared towards, people who are having a tough time in their lives. They've had losses, they've had challenges, they've had trauma, all kinds of things that just crushed their spirit. Hey, when the human spirit is crushed, man, then hope goes out the window. And suddenly, or over a period of time, people are like, man, this life is not worth living. I just want to end it all. That's what this podcast is about. It's about redirecting that. It's about changing that mindset. It's about changing your heart. It's about looking at, the things that have caused you pain and suffering, the disillusionment in your life, looking at them and paradoxically see what you can glean from it so you can live your best life. That's what this podcast is about. And I'm very passionate about it. And yeah, that's what it's about. So here's what I always say next. If you're listening to this podcast and you're thinking of not finishing your story, like you don't feel safe with yourself, you think you're having thoughts of suicide or homicide, right? Because, hey, I can't tell you how many people I've talked to, and they say stuff like, I really want to hurt this person. I want them to be done. You know what I mean? Those are homicidal thoughts. All right. Now, do you have a plan? Here's where it gets tricky. Now, if you have a plan, that's a different story. So this is why I say, hey, you get like that, I want you to pick up the phone and I want you to dial 988 and push 1. If you don't feel like doing that, you have your nearest ER, please go there or have someone to drive you. I always slow down here, especially when I'm working. I'm like, you know what? I want to humanize this piece because look, at some point or another, all of us hit rock bottom. Like the rug has just been pulled out from under us. And it's like, we just give up hope. It just feels so empty. You feel so numb. Everything in the world just seems so not real. People don't seem real to you anymore. You just numb out. People drink. People, do promiscuous things, do just random things, trying to get away from the pain. Tonight, we're going to look at facing the pain, sitting in the pain, right? We're going to take a look at how to be present with what we're facing. Because in doing that is a paradox of healing. Yeah, we're going to talk about that. So, but this is a time I always give the consenting piece, if you will, or the disclosure piece, all of that stuff. It's important to do. And even if I wasn't a clinician, I think it's important for everybody to do that. Why? Because we're all responsible for each other. We really are. We're more connected than we realize. The world tries to divide us, but we're more connected than we realize. All right, we're going to take another break. After I do that piece, I always go into another song. All right, so what are we going to play? I don't know. Let's see. I have not been playing a lot of Samuel Madas, and I need to get back to that. Sorry for the squeak. I can hear that squeaking. Ooh, that's a lot. That's a lot of squeaking right there. But I want to go to Samuel Madas tonight. I'm gonna pull up my guy right here, and play something from his album. I talk about him all the time, and the song is titled "Presence." Without his presence, it doesn't make sense. It's your presence I need, so I won't fear. If you're not going with me, I'm not moving from here. It's your presence I need. Me don't lose track of the amount of time before. I'm not as good as people think I am. And to be honest, my strength is all in. Only if you will understand. But on this side, your word never left me, God. And I want close to the promised land. And just so you know, I'm not crossing over if you are not holding my hand. Oh, cause I'm smart enough to know that I'm nothing without your love. Sometimes I get distracted by your promises. Cause over there, the milk and the honey look good. And I'll be living the way I should. But even if me, I think you're 6,000 millions in the bank, there'll be something missing. So I sing if you're not going with me. I'm not moving from here. It's your presence I need. And I won't fear, no, if you're not going with me. I'm not moving from there. It's your presence. Got a plans of a mentor. It knows not what tomorrow brings. But sure are the plans of the Lord. So I will trust you in everything. Hold me up and move without your light. You know the end from the beginning. Trust your voice and you will always keep me with it. Sorry, guys. Sorry about that. The squeaky squeak. Still perfecting my podcasting skills. Oh my gosh. Hey, thank you for those who are listening all over. Oh my gosh. I have to tell you, what's new is that, hang on, guys, my headphones came off. Yeah, what's new? What's new with me? Well, I had a birthday. Did I tell you that? I had a birthday 2 weeks ago. That's new. That's new. What else is new? What's new with you guys? What's new? All right, we're reflecting a little bit. What's new with you guys? Let's see. What's new? What's the same? What's the same is that, man, start campaign number week 9 was awesome. So, start campaign is basically starting with whatever it is that you need to do. What did you want to start with this year? We're now in March, almost April. And one of the things I wanted to make sure I started back doing or continue doing was, working out. Physical exercise is important to your health, right? Physical, spiritual, all of that stuff. It all goes together, So Start campaign is in week number 9, and you've probably seen some of my social media posts, and it's going strong. And a few people have checked in on that. They haven't said well they're started, but they have seemed to be encouraging the campaign, which lets me know that maybe they're doing something behind the scenes, and that's cool too. So that's what's the same. What else is the same? I continue to, do my prayer time and, making sure that I meditate. That's the same. So when I talk about what's the same, it doesn't mean it's always negative. Sometimes I find this work when I ask my clients that I say, well, what's the same? And they start talking about a bunch of stuff that's not working. No, I don't mean that. By all means, hey, we got to identify things that are not working. But how about some of the same things that actually are working, So what's the theme here? Reflection, right? We're reflecting. We're still reflecting. And, what else is different? What's different right now is that, what's different for me is that I'm really trying to, video record these podcast episodes. That's what's different. And what else is different too, regarding the podcast is that there are people downloading the podcast from Russia now. I'm like, whoa, that made me nervous. I think I mentioned that in a video I did this past week or last week. I can't recall. But I really appreciate, the fact that, hey, nobody listens to these kind of podcasts just because they want to, I don't know, they want to waste their time. You know what I mean? People listen to these kind of podcast episodes because they're at a place in their lives where they need support and they need help. And, hey, we help to co-write, each other's story. So, hey, you're listening. There's a reason why you're listening. And I'm glad you're listening. I'm glad you're listening. And I'm glad that this voice that I didn't like, that there's an expression of it. And this expression is helping you. Because you know what? My voice has a sound. Your voice has a sound. Do you know sounds change things? Sounds, a sound. Sound has impact, right? Music has sound, right? Sound can be healing, right? And so my voice has a sound. Your voice has a sound, right? Words have a sound, which gives off energy. And so what kind of sound, right, are you giving off every day, right? Think about that. So this podcast, right, with my voice is giving off a sound and it's sounding off in many places. And you see what happened is that once again, just want to reinforce the fact that I'm helping to co-write your story. You're helping to co-write mine. And this is the power of connecting, right? It's called, stable communities. Stable communities doesn't mean just local. It's global. It's, So anyway, what else is new? What's new is that, hey, I'm going to tell you now that we're going to have 2 guests on the show here on Faith for the Journey. We're going to have a guest next week. I'm going to keep that one as a surprise. Not sure this individual wants me to name. provide the name yet, but the next guest, I will say who it is. I've gotten permission already. It's going to be my best friend from college and law school. His name is Terrence Dowdell. He is an attorney and now healer. He does sound healing. So hint, hint, I was alluding talking about sound. He's going to be on the podcast as my guest in 2 weeks. That's going to be episode number 11. And he's going to be talking about his healing journey. And remember, on this podcast, we've been talking about becoming flexible with the resources that we use for our healing, right? So he's going to be, that's new. So I want to share what's new. He's going to be on the show in 2 weeks. So remember that. And I'll say it again and I'll talk about that and I'll do, social media posting about it. All right. So let's dive in, paradox of healing. So here's the deal, right? We all have hurt. We all have some challenging things happen to us. And by the way, I'm just going to say that's not going to stop. And nobody wants to say that, I have my notes because, I prepare. And if you ever come to my sessions, you all know that I come prepared, right? I don't come without my stuff. I come prepared. But look, hard stuff is not going to stop. You know what? In fact, I had a hard week. I don't know for you all. What kind of week did you have this week? Did you have people come against you this week? I did. I really did, And yeah, I had people come. People just do stuff and say stuff. And it's like, you're like, why? Did you have someone in your family, really just like people say now, come for you? I like that. Right? Did you have someone give you a hard time? You're trying to put something through and they're just being very much not helpful. Have you had that? Maybe you were met with some disappointment this week, or maybe you've had a lifetime of just many things that, you have yet to resolve, right? So basically, we've either had something or we have something or we're going to have something. So we know what a paradox is, right? Paradox is the opposite of the thing that we expect, right? So I like the word paradox a lot. And the title tonight is Paradox of Healing. What that simply means is that our healing doesn't often come the way that we expect it. It doesn't come the way, I used to grow up hearing people say, don't ask God for patience, because he doesn't just give you patience. He gives you more difficulties that will provide the patience. Do you get that? Yeah, that's a paradox, right? Because you expect patience to come in a very nice, how do you imagine patience, right? Come very calm and nice and very inviting. No, you ask for patience, you're going to be tried. Which leads me to the scripture I want to open up with tonight. Okay, I'm going to pull it up. It's when I talk about tried, it just brings it right back to what I want to talk about. It says, it's James chapter 1, verse 2-4, and I'm going to read it. It says, hold on one second, here we go. It says, consider, I don't like the international version, but I'll read it because that's what first came up. I like the KJV, the King James Version. But it says, count it all joy, my brothers and sisters, when you face many trials. Right? In fact, I'm just going to open my Bible because the phone just gives me it abbreviated, and that's not what I want. So I'm going to bear with me a little bit. Happy Easter, everyone. Happy Easter. As I get older, Easter becomes more meaningful to me. Obviously, it's not about candy. It's about the death, the burial, and the resurrection of Jesus Christ. For those of you who believe that, if you don't, I'm not going to challenge you on that, but this is my belief. And those of you who do, I appreciate that. So, James chapter 1, verses 2 and 3 and 4, right? My brethren, and if you wonder where James is in the Bible, it's in the New Testament. It's after the book of Hebrews. It says, my brethren, count it all joy when you fall into diverse temptations or trials, the KJV says. Knowing this, that the trying of your faith worketh patience, but let patience have her perfect work, that ye may be perfect and entire, wanting nothing. That's paradoxical, right? Because guess what? It says, who counts it all joy when they find when they enter into diverse temptation or trials. Nobody does that. It's not. It's very counterintuitive to be thankful when things happen. I mean, who wants to be thankful when when they're assaulted or raped or abandoned or rejected? Who 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 wants to count it all joy? None of us do. So in our human disposition, none of us wants to do that. None of us. And it is in these challenging moments and times, right, where we want to give up hope. And it's in these moments. And here's the thing. These things that happen to us, I include myself in that. I've had my own experiences. Those things that happen to us, right? They happen not because God wanted that to happen, but because we live in a fallen world and these things are bound to happen. How do I know that's true? Well, look at adaptation then. All right, if you're evolutionists, look at adaptation. When you look in the animal kingdom, all right, well, what happens to the animal that eats the other animal? Well, how do you explain that? Well, I mean, that's adaptation. That's survival of the fittest. That's how evolutionists explain that. So someone has to be the prey, right? Prey, right? And the other one is someone has to be the predator. So even in the animal kingdom, we see that these harsh things are happening, right? And that's adaptation. That's how they explain it. And so, but in the human race, people say, well, why is it, and I've had many people say to me, why is it God made this happen to me? And I said, that's a great question. I just don't know that the question is rightly worded. That's a great question. But is it properly worded, to say that he caused this to happen to me? Now, did I speak like that at one time? Yes, I did. I sure did. I really did. All right. So like the blind man last week, why did God cause him? He said neither his parents did this. His parents didn't sin. He didn't sin. So why did this happen to me? What did I do? No, you didn't do anything. None of that. None of that. Right. I'm not going to rewind that podcast. You want to listen to that podcast where I explained it in detail. Go back and listen to that one. So the paradox of healing is, it's interesting that it's in these hurtful moments, these challenging things that happen to us. It's from these things that we have to go back to them. We have to face them. All right. We can't run from them, because running from them, we do not heal. Running from them only makes it stay longer. When I do EMDR therapy, man, I'm really let me turn this down. It's too loud. That must be a little bit better. Oh my gosh, that was way too loud. When I do EMDR therapy, one of the things that we have to do is we have to go back to the story. Yeah, we got to go back to it. And the thing I like about EMDR therapy is that, first of all, I do a lot of preparation. So EMDR is eye movement desensitization reprocessing, right? It's not like regular talk therapy. It's not. It's a trauma protocol for, significant and serious trauma stories and narratives. Okay. And I've done EMDR. I've been practicing EMDR since 2018. That's what? 2018? How long ago is that? Oh my gosh. 2015, 2018. Why am I squeaking so much tonight? I am squeaking a lot tonight, guys. I am so sorry. I don't know what the issue is. I'm trying to sort it out. Oh my gosh. All right. So 2018. So I've been doing this now for EMDR since 7 years, 7 years. And when you do EMDR, it requires one to go back into the narrative, into the trauma itself. Okay. And I'm going to tell you, it's not easy, but it's so worth it. It is so worth it. So even in that practice, I realized going back into the story, going back into what happened is important. You got to be present with it. You got to sit with it. So paradoxically, even this paradox shows up even in the work, in this work that I do. When you're doing EMDR, you got to go back. You got to go back to certain parts of it. Some parts, sometimes all of it, So we had to go back in there to get what we need out of it to heal, so we can rewrite that story. Paradoxically. Yeah. Let's pause for that. Let's pause for a moment on that. I don't know why I'm squeaking so much tonight. Oh my goodness. I've never had this issue. Being really challenged tonight. So, my question to you is, what if we could use fear, loss, suffering to help us grow wiser and become more at peace with ourselves? What if? What if we could do that? Oftentimes, um, the things that hurt us the most is the attachment to ourselves and what could have been. Yes, let's do it. What could have been? What if that didn't happen to me? What if that wasn't said to me? And let me tell you, I've said these things to myself. When I was growing up, I often say to myself, what would happen if my father was in my life? Gee, what I think I said this on the last episode. Like, and from time to time, when I feel challenged emotionally, that voice tries to come back. It really does. That's it. It tries to come up. You know, that old inner voice tries to turn itself back up. And thank goodness, thank God that that I have some. First of all, I have God in my life. Okay, I have God in my life that He has healed me, and because I'm still in this flesh, things will try to come back, try to be regenerated. But you know, when you spend time, cultivating your spiritual life, and when these things try to come back at you, it's not as strong. It doesn't even hit you the same way. Which is, this is why I believe in, people having a strong vocation, because now look, out of my story, out of my trauma, really have come the work that I do. Take a look at that. All right. And the work that I do from my trauma is helping other people. So the sound that comes from me, right, is helping many people. What if I had just sat in my own trauma? What would have happened? One, I wouldn't heal, and my sound would not have been cleared up to help other people so they can get their sound out. Right? What if I just sat with, well, gee, if my father was in my life, I would have been better. I would have been this. So one of the things that we do is the ego, just gets stagnant. We get so, egotistic about, and it is egotistical. Like, oh, if this person didn't do this to me, if my father, and so we do the blame thing. Blaming is egotistical. It is, right? Because we stay stuck with that. So our attachment to our bodies, right, ourselves, or what could have been. This is how we increase our suffering, by the way. When we're attached to our loved ones, and we know one day we all have an appointment. We're all going to pass away one day. Man, that's tough. I mean, that's tough for me to say. I mean, I'm talking about my own mortality here. All right, that's tough. Which is why it's so important, right, for you to find meaning every day in your life. Find it, guys. Find it. It's important. You have a sound to let out. All right. So we also get attached to our achievements, or the ones that we didn't make, the ones that we wish. See, this is the thing, you know? So you can always identify, or not always, most times you can identify, pretty much always though. I'm careful about the word always, but let's do almost always. You almost always can tell identify what brings us pain in our lives by what we are attached to. Pay attention. No, seriously. Whatever we are attached to, that's what causes us the most pain. What would happen if we became egoless? You're going to hear me talk more about egolessness. So, from a spiritual framework, one of the scriptures says that, if you abide in me, that's in the book of Matthew or Mark, if you abide in me and I abide in you, which is, God, Jesus Christ says, I'm the vine, you're the branches. Apart from me, you can do nothing. So abiding in him, that means I'm not abiding in myself. I'm not sticking to my own ego. Hey, there's one thing. It's okay to be confident. Let me just clarify. It's okay to be confident about what you can do. But you got to check the source of your confidence. What's your source? Where's it coming from? Because if your source is Him, then you can walk about being confident and not being egotistical, right? You can walk about with humility. But what does that sound like? Well, that sounds like, you know what? I grew up without a father. And guess what? I had a very poor self-esteem. But guess what? God has redeemed my story. This is my confidence now. God has redeemed my story. And guess what? I am loved. Uh-huh. And I am fully known by Him. Uh-huh. And guess what? I am wonderfully made. I am loved. I am fully known and I'm wonderfully made. I am loved, right? Did you hear that? I am. I'm fully known by Him. I'm fully known by God and I'm wonderfully made, right? This is the confidence I have in Him. And this is the confidence I have, right? So I'm able to walk in the humility knowing that, hey, you know what? These things happen, but look, He redeemed my story. And look, I can walk with my head held high. And I don't have to hold on. I don't have to be attached to the things that happen to me. I don't have to be attached to the things that I wish were. But I can let Him unfold my life before me, recognizing who He is and Him teaching me every day how to move forward. So what if we could use our fears, the loss, the suffering to help us grow and become wiser, become more at peace with ourselves? That's the thing. The thing about this, when you have peace and tranquility in your life, you have a lot more clarity. You really do. It's really amazing when you can really begin to become egoless, not attached to the things that you wish were. Like, I wish I had a relationship with my dad or my mom. Yeah, in our humanity, that's a real, real desire. Why? Because we look at other people that have it and we say, gee, if I had that, what would I be? Yes. I mean, it's true. I'm speaking from my own life and over the years, the work that I've done, and I see these things to be repetitive, right? And guess what? The more we hold on to that, is the more suffering we heap onto ourselves. Hey, check out this quote. All right. We're going to talk about how oysters make pearls. Quote, without the inner pain of irritation, the pearls of wisdom will not be produced or released in us. Let me say it again. Without the inner pain or irritation, the pearls of wisdom will not be released or produced in us. So here's the thing. Remember, so we're subjected to this world. We're subjected to pain, suffering, loss, death, all of those things, right? We're subjected to that. That was not the original plan. It was not the original plan. So although those things were not caused by God, and these things were allowed because of things that, we did not do, but we went against those things. People say, well, I had nothing to do with that. It was Adam and Eve. Well, all right, fine. But we're still the human race, so we're all in it. But the beautiful thing is that God gets to redeem our stories, right? He uses the thing that was meant to harm us to redeem us. That is powerful. And hey, you know what? This is Easter weekend. The death, the burial. So when He died to redeem nature, creation, us. He made it possible for us to have a different choice, a different life. And that requires faith to believe that, to believe that story, to believe this. Hey, that's what stories are. They become historical facts. People say, I don't believe. Well, what's history then? History is verbal. A lot of history is verbal. So, we can talk for hours about that. But I do believe in the death, the burial, and the resurrection of Jesus Christ. I do. I've seen Him work in my life. I've seen and felt, the release of pain in my life. I have. I really have. So here's the thing. So I'm checking my time. So what does that quote mean? It means that no transformation and no gain. In other words, if we're not processed, by the fallenness that happened to us, then there's no transformation, there's no gain. Let me say that again. So if there's no irritation, if there's no irritants, if we don't go through the very thing that was meant to bury us and kill us is the very thing that we need to go back into to get what is needed so we can transform, so we can get to that better person, that better version, the version that was intended the first time. Let me say it that way. The version that was intended the first time. You know, the version that was intended the first time was to be egoless. Yep, it was to be egoless. It's not to be attached to things. It wasn't supposed to be attached to things. If you remember the story in the Garden of Eden, he said, hey, eat from this tree, not from that. Well, the serpent came around and started talking, and Eve decided to listen. Because what? She thought she knew more than what the Creator said. That was becoming very, very, very egotistic, because I know better. She knew more. That's it. I know more. That's the ego talking. She listened to the serpent and not to the Lord. How many times we let our ego get in the way? That's the thing. When you have free will, free will is important because that's what God gave us. But that free will is not for us to become egotistical. That free will is for us to rely on Him and be egoless. Okay? So, hey, with the fall of creation, boy, that ego went rampant. But the thing of it is, what we don't realize that when we become egotistical, there's a fall that's coming. There's a fall, and the fall did happen, and many of us keep falling that way. We keep falling that way, but we don't need to. We don't need to. We need to recognize that the hardship that comes to us, let's not get stuck on ego. Why is this happening? Why didn't it go this way? Hey, you got to remember the source of things. You got to reflect. Remember the source of things, which is why it's so important to cultivate, your spiritual life, to have enlightenment. I read a scripture this week that says, I think it was Paul that was talking, it was the book of Acts chapter 8 or 9. He said, God, give me the spirit of wisdom, right? And I, right? And I, enlighten my eye and the revelation, the knowledge of the revelation of your word. See how, I think I'm saying it that, correctly, but I try to memorize that. He says, give me a spirit of wisdom and a revelation of knowledge, revelation of your knowledge, and open my eyes to enlightenment. That was the scripture. Yes. And I was like, wow, this is the thing, when we spend time, and that's one of the ways to strengthen your spirituality is by reading the scriptures, right? Those of us who read the scripture, or, other persons read different things, and you can still enlighten your spirituality that way. But for me, that's one of my primary ways, reading my Bible and praying. And so, when I read the scriptures like that, I become egoless, right? I'm not stuck on my own way or understanding about anything that comes my way, because then I get insight and I get wisdom as to how to become that better version of myself, which is to become an egoless self in the midst of what I'm facing. So I'm not attached to anything. That takes practice, guys. That takes practice. Man, we've been going straight for a while. Let's take a break. So I read the scripture to you about count it all joy. That was a paradox, right? And so I'm going to take a break right now. We're going to come back and we're going to talk a little bit more about the oyster, right? We're going to talk about more about, the importance of becoming egoless, especially in the face of things that come existentially that's outside of our control. So what are we going to play next? almost 7 o'clock. I didn't even know it would go that long tonight, guys. I don't know what's coming across for you. What are you connecting with? I don't know. We talked about a lot of things tonight, but the theme is the paradox of the opposite, doing the opposite thing so we can be healed. Gosh, I'm losing my headphones. Doing the opposite of things, right? Becoming egoless, right? Instead of doing, what the ego asks us to do or wants us to do. Hey, people want to say, I'm going to kill myself. That's egotistical, because you're taking your life, the life that you didn't give yourself. That's being egotistical. That's leaning on your own understanding. That's not considering the perspective, a different one. So when we try to, hey, Eve was egotistical. She thought she knew better. People think kill themselves is because they know better. That's going to work out best. No, it doesn't. It doesn't. All right. There's another perspective. There's another perspective. All right, we're gonna play some music. We're gonna come back and wrap it up. Man, I feel like I didn't have enough time tonight, and I think it's because I came into this a little bit kind of flustered because I was trying to, do the video recording because I promised it and I couldn't deliver on it. Well, I tried, guys. I just want you to know things don't always go in a straight line. Existentially, things happen, right? I know, right? I gotta preach to my own self while I'm pulling up my search list here, my library. Man, hang on, guys. Um, Sometimes I just get so torn about, what I should play. I like this one, Tasha Cobbs and William Murphy. So, I just kind of want to, I don't know, reinforce the metaphor from the oyster, Trying to wrap this up. So this is true, right? So for the oyster, right, to prepare precious pearls, right? It takes an irritant like sand. I mean, I did some research on this, or a bit of shell to stimulate the oyster to produce the mucus juices, right? Um, the irritant that eventually it hardens it into a precious pearl. And those things are expensive. People put a lot of value on pearls. I don't personally like pearls, but you get the fact, you get the idea. So look at what it takes to make pearls. Now, I mean, I feel like I am more precious than pearls. Aren't you more precious than pearls? Right. And so, yeah, you are. You and I, we are. So it's from from this processing, right? I mean, think about it. Sand. You ever got sand on you in your eye or something like that? That sucks. It's hard to get it out of your vehicle too. But look at what's required to produce the mucuses that will harden itself. And by the way, when it produces the mucus juices, it engulfs it. It does. It literally immerses itself like all over it. And then it hardens into a precious pearl. Can you imagine? You ever seen a pearl, one pearl at a time? So can you imagine the amount of irritant that it was required to make a pearl? To make a precious pearl and to make pearls. Think about that. Nature does that. Nature does that. So if that's the process for pearls, then what's the process for us? Man, we're going to go through some stuff. We're not going to stop going through stuff. We're not. One of the things I want to leave you with tonight, because remember, I'm always underscoring, every episode with cultivating faith for the journey. So we're looking at the paradox of healing. So paradoxically, a pearl is not made out of, a process of ease. It's not. Look at that, um, it just isn't. And we can go through several things in nature. I mean, look at the butterfly. That has its process too, and it turns into a beautiful butterfly. And then look at that, you know? And so just even the laws of nature, even nature was altered, and nature itself was altered at the fall. And it, when I say they, animal kingdom, animals, creatures, they also have their own processing that they have to go through. So the laws of nature, they're synonymous with the laws of humanity. When I say laws, the things that happen, as some people say, evolution. For us, we call it the fall, the things that happen that change the laws, that change the original intent for them and for us. So it's the very thing that made us fall, is that very thing, paradoxically, that produces the pearl. Do you understand? So how we relate, so I try not to put too much science into this tonight, but how we relate subjectively to the objective things that happen to us matters, because that's how we heal. It's how we relate to the things that happen to us. It's how we relate to them. And how we relate to them really means that we need to have some tools in our toolbox. So I'm leaving you with two things tonight. One of the tools, become egoless. meaning become unattached. How do you become unattached? Here's one thing I want you to think about doing. And this is a tool. It's another tool I want you to put in your toolbox of, developing and cultivating faith. Face your difficulties realistically. Yeah, don't run. How long you been running? How long have you been running? Instead of withdrawing from them, isolating, cutting people off. I can't tell you how many people I've worked with said, you know what? I don't talk to nobody. I don't tell nobody about what I'm going through. I just, put on my best face, but they're dying inside. They're like a cesspool. Some people do suffer silently, and it's so heartbreaking. It really is. So one of the things I want you to do is to face your difficulties realistically instead of withdrawing from them. Well, how do you do that? I'm going to tell you next, and we're going to close. Sit with it. That may mean, be here, be present. And I tell you what, I got to slip in here real quick. That's one of the tenets of existentialism, is to be present in the moment with whatever it is that you're facing. Be present with it. You know what that means? That may mean you need to cry, snot. Yeah, it might mean you need to laugh. Some people I find laugh in the face of hardship because that's their coping mechanism. Can't get into that tonight. But some people, they laugh because they become hysterical. It happens. But at least they're being present. They're not checking out. You know what I mean? Concentrate. Do some concentrated prayer about something. Get someone to pray with you, cry with you, sit with you, just sit. I remember my father died. I mean, I bawled. Some days I just sat. When my grandmother died, I'm telling you, maybe do some deep breath work, some meditation. So face it. Do not run. Face it realistically. Be real about it. When I say realistic, be real about it. Be real about it. Hey, I don't have that relationship with my mom or dad like I want to. Face it. Be real about it. Because you may never have that. You may never have it. What are you gonna do? You gotta not be attached to that. You may never have that. Paradox of Healing, guys. My goodness. Episode number 9. And I really appreciate you being with me this evening. I'm going to play this song. I'm going to go out with 10,000